Airbus are making a good attempt as they can to rule the single-path medium-structure business flight market, and that is the reason they've uncovered plans to deliver a bigger double-obtained motor determination variation of their somewhat new yet pained A220 setup called the A22500 or Neo, as they expect to turn things up a score. The A220 Neo is supposed to supplant Airbus' maturing A330 arrangement and appropriately contend in the same airspace as Boeing 737 MAX. To comprehend the reason why the A220 Neo will supplant the 737 MAX, we really want to initially get a brief prologue to the A220 setup so we can have a thought of what the A220 Neo will bring. The Airbus A220 is a group of tight-body aircrafts at present claimed via Airbus that used to be known as the C-Series when they were initially created and sent off by Canadian airplane maker Bombardier in 2008. Anyway, Bombardier is confronting monetary issues and chose to accomplice up with Airbus in a joint dare to rebrand the C-Series fly aircrafts to the A220s we have today, and this ended up being a monstrous success for Airbus. That is on the grounds that the A220 family acquired a gigantic prevalence among aircrafts due to its mind-blowing fuel productivity and low working expense, and it's nothing unexpected why truly when we look at it you see the twin fly family comes with a large group of highlights. For example, their carbon composite wings, their PW1500G motors, which are solely made by Pratt & Whitney, coming about an enhanced optimal design for further developed fuel proficiency and dispatch dependability. Add that to Airbus' notable fly-by-wire controls, and it's nothing unexpected then that the A220 turned into a fan number one among aircrafts. The A220 family comprises of two fundamental variations: the A22100, which is the more limited variation at just 35 meters of fuselage length and accompanies a maximum scope of 3,450 nautical miles and a traveler limit of 130, and the marginally bigger A22300, which has an extra 3.7 meters worth of fuselage genuine home, as well as the capacity to convey anyplace somewhere in the range of 120 and 160 travelers over a scope of 3,600 nautical miles. The A22300 is the most well-known A220 variation, such a long ways as it supplements the A319 Neo. It additionally has the ability to rival Boeing 737 MAX 7 because of the benefit of having a shiny new clean sheet plan. What's more, apparently better innovation among others. However, yet as of late there have been a few difficult issues with the A220 that have been a thistle in the tissue for Airbus gives that have prompted the proposition for another airplane. So what happened? Well, the principal issue with the A220 is the way that, dissimilar to the more established A320s and different contenders, they have a single motor choice, the Pratt & Whitney PW1500 grams motors. Recall them from before. No doubt the A220s can run on one sort of motor, and this is since Bombardier in those days had chosen to place them all into their C-Series planes to drive down the expense of creation. However, the issue for the A220 series that they're currently helpless before Pratt & Whitney and their continuous store network issues, and that is not all. You see, the A220s are primarily electronic, so they're inclined to creating irregular electrical shortcomings which can cause undoings, delays, and indeed even redirections. It additionally seems like they once in a while get shortcoming messages in their electronic unified airplane screen or on the other handycam, which can deliver the plane inoperable. Anyway, Airbus doesn't appear to be stressing over this as much as they're agonizing over the A220 motor issues on the grounds that in a most dire outcome imaginable, assuming any of the airplanes created motor issue, carriers would presumably need to sit tight in lengthy lines for a substitution, and that is precisely exact thing happened. A few carriers have as of now been compelled to ground a good part of their A220s because of their PW1500G motors experiencing issues, for example, having mid-flight disappointments, and in some cases it's far more terrible. Take Latvian carrier Air Baltic for instance. They even needed to briefly wet rent extra A320 airplanes as of late due to very nearly a dozen of their A22300s being grounded. It's passed on to perceive how the continuous worldwide supply chain with Pratt & Whitney will be settled from here on out, yet until further notice they are a lot of a hindrance for the A220 and for Airbus. So what did Airbus really do? Well, Airbus took a gander at all the issues 220 and chose another motor choice with specific adjustments would be the most effective way forward. They chose to call this new variation the A220 Neo or the A22500, staying aware of their naming custom, and this new airplane could mean large difficulty for Boeing 737 MAX 8. You see, the new airplane will be viable with a second sort of motor, potentially the CFM Jump 1A from General Electric. This is fundamental since it definitely decreases creation and fixed times. The airplane will likewise have a length and fuselage to expand the greatest travelers from 160 to 180. This places it in the perfect spot to contend with Boeing's 737 MAX 8, also as Airbus' own A320 Neo. The A220 Neo is set to hold every one of the elements that make the A220 experience fulfilling for travelers and include some genuinely necessary fixes and changes to the elements that could have been keeping them down. Basically put, the A220 Neo appears to be like the MAX 8 executioner. So how might the new A220 variation coordinate against the 737 MAX 8? Furthermore, their own A320 Neo. Now the A220 Neo will have a fair, not many clear benefits over both A320 Neo and 737 MAX due to the way that they'll take on more current advancements like composite wings, which will make them lighter and at last more proficient. They'll likewise sport a cleaner plan with enhanced optimal design and machining, which would lead them to being all the more earth cordial than either the A320 Neo or the 737 MAX. Truth be told, the A220 in its current structure produces 20% lower carbon discharges. It has a 34% lower commotion impression than the A320s, so you could expect the A220 Neo to better or basically keep up with those eco-accommodating insights. Presently it's not just about being green, about saving green, and you can expect lower working expenses over both the A320 and 737 MAX 8. You see, the A220 as of now flaunts around a 10% lower working expense, contrasted with the all-around lovely productive A320, and if you add the additional room and moved along execution on the A220 Neo, it's no shock to us then that Airbus would be able to get a very effective piece of designing. And there's additional as far as limit. The A220 Neo is supposed to accompany a maximum traveler limit of somewhere in the range of 180 and 200 travelers, which puts it to some extent comparable to the A320 Neo and marginally higher than the 737 MAX 8's a 178 traveler limit. In the event that we accept that the A220 move accompanies something similar range as the A22300, then it would have a limit with respect to 3,500 nautical miles, which puts it squarely in the center of the A320 Neo's 3,400 nautical miles and the 737 MAX 8's a 360 nautical miles. Anyway, if the equivalent is applied to the fuel consume rate, then, at that point, its 10.11 pounds per mile fuel consume rate puts it behind the 9.91 pounds per mile pace of the A320 Neo, yet strangely in front of the 737 MAX 8's at 10.9 pounds per mile, despite the fact that we truly question that there will be no upgrades to the fuel consume pace of the A220 Neo. It's likewise expected that the A220 Neo will accompany a lower, most extreme departure weight than the A320 Neo and 737 MAX 8, which means trip expenses could be brought down as air terminals charge for the extra weight. Going by the details of the accessible A220 airplanes, it's self-evident that the A220 Neo will blow the A320 Neon 737 maximize of the water with an further developed motor framework and even more current plan. Yet details aren't all that you see, despite the fact that it looks, truth be told, promising right now. There are a couple things that could keep down the delivery of the A220 Neo. Now is the right time to examine the conditions that could make or blemish the progress of the A220 Neo, and first up is the potential creation issues. One of the significant issues Airbus faces is the issue of creation, and this in light of the fact that they source a great deal of their parts from airplane producers from various mainlands, and this prompts supply chain issues like in the A220, and furthermore an inflated expense for every airplane. A sharp difference to this is Boeing, which sources the greater part of its materials from somewhat close by, prompting less expensive creation costs and a less possibility encountering item postpones. These creation issues have driven Airbus to store a significant buildup of airplanes for their A220 A320 setup, and if those excesses are not cleared, it would be extremely difficult for the A220 Neo to be delivered anyway. There are really two ways of taking a gander at this. With many A320 NEOs yet to be conveyed, Airbus could offer administrators an opportunity to trade their A320 new orders to a 220 Neo if they can increase creation and commitment, a more limited holding up time. But on the other hand, there's a little worry among certain fans that the A220 Neo could influence the progress of the A320 Neo on the grounds that they'll be contending in a comparable market, and as you know at this point the A220 Neo will come with additional productive advancements and includes. However, there's nothing to back this up as the A320 Neo keeps a solid request book, so we may in all likelihood won't ever see them contend with one another, and it could rather be a sluggish gradually getting rid of and supplanting of the A320 Neos with the A220 Neos as they progress in years other than Airbus concentrate right presently is by all accounts on sloping up their creation abilities. For the A220 anyway, it's vital to realize that interest for the A320 appears to have been moving from the more modest A319 what's more, 320 to the bigger A321, and this could prepare for the appearance of a 220 Neo sooner rather than later. Yet what about Boeing? Great Boeing themselves aren't liberated from issues either, as their 737 MAX arrangement has experienced significant blows of its own, not in particular the repeating disappointments to their Moving Qualities Expansion Framework or MCAS, which has prompted 2 lethal accidents. Furthermore, a PR fiasco after their airplanes were grounded. Overall, they're still very well known, however, yet you could continuously sense an opening for contenders, with that one progressing to the A220 Neo could likewise take into account the standardization of recently planned low-thickness single-passageway armadas which use progressed materials and carriers previously utilizing the A220s. For example, Delta and Air Baltic could merge an A22100 and 22300 in A220 Neo fleet. So what do you think? The A220 Neo is coming, and with its elements it seems like each carrier will ask for it, which could mean difficulty for this 737 MAX 8 and even A320 Neo anyway. Airbus will most likely need to sort their creation gives first. However, at the point when it comes, it'll just cement their base as the prevailing power in the single-path business flight market.